time to get into some burning questions, and we're going to start with Richmond. And you're up first, Jimmy. Can a new coach, speaking of coaches, like Adam Uze, absorb, let's say, another 2-win season or even less this year? And if they get done significantly most weeks, does he survive into 2026?
I think he does if he has the season like the Lions did a number of years ago where they won 5 wins, or when they had 5 wins. And everyone went, hang on, we can see what the Lions are doing. And they sort of used the percentage as a measuring stick. So they were in games, but they got beaten on experience and a bit of fatigue and development, as we spoke on. So we want to see what Adam Uze is trying to do, like the style. And, yeah, we'll forgive him for being beaten, I guess, as the game goes on or as the year gets deep. But if you're a Richmond fan or a impartial watcher, you want to go see, I can see what Adam Uze is trying to do here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Carlton. Can we truly trust Carlton, Hurdy?
Oh, as an Essendon man, that's very hard for me to say. Can we trust Carlton? Carlton up to about round 16, 17 last year, yes. Yep. The last part, no. I think the first 5 rounds of this year will tell you whether we can trust Carlton. At the moment, not so sure.
I'm looking at Adelaide as well, Hurdy. 12th, 11th, 18th, 15th, 14th, 10th and 15th. That's 7 straight seasons where they haven't played finals. This rebuild surely is ready to kick off at some point. If it doesn't, if they don't play finals, do wholesale changes need to be made? I
don't know about wholesale changes. The expectation is they make finals or things will change.
Freo. Is it possible for Freo, Jimmy, to reach a prelim final playing the style of football that Justin Longmuir clearly likes to play?
Yeah, I think some people grab this and see it as a negative from my point of view. I think it can be a really big positive, and I'm asking him to trust himself, because I think he can coach defence football or defensive style football, his philosophy really well. I think when Fremantle start having huge amounts of possessions where they go backwards, sideways, actually hinders them. We saw through a middle patch of the year where they kicked big scores against Melbourne and a couple of other teams. They've got the players to do it and they've got the talent. That's why I like Fremantle, because they've got the talent and ability. But instead of Jordan Clark and Ryan going kick to kick in the back half, I want to see Jordan Clark breaking past the logos. I want to see Ryan intercepting the ball in the front half, and they've got the ability there. So I think he just needs to trust his side that they can defend. Right, now let's show some flair.
Yeah, the expectations are certainly high in Perth at the moment with the Fremantle Dockers. Let's go to the Western Bulldogs. Do you think we should cut Bevo and the Dogs some slack given their injuries, especially in the first couple of months of the season, Hurdy?
Absolutely not. I mean, the Western Bulldogs fans aren't sitting there saying, oh, we've got a couple of injuries, well, we can lose 4 or 5. They've got a tough start, Kangaroos first, then a tough 4 or 5 weeks. But no, I think that Luke Beveridge certainly knows that his side, he wants them to perform and they need to perform.
Big talking point of the year, the Dogs, Jimmy. The Brisbane Lions, have they got the fewest weak spots of any team in the AFL?
It's pretty close. I just remember the first half of the grand final, and for me it was the first and second year guys who actually really stood up. And so you add another stack of games to them, you throw in another Ashcroft. I think the biggest thing with Joe Danaher is not only are you trying to find that forward with goals, we undersold how good he was as the second ruck.
Yeah.
So it's actually a bit how they'll run this year, you know, what their team makeup looks like to cover not only the second ruck, but a great focal point.
What's the break-even for North Melbourne this year, Hurdy? They haven't won more than 4 games in a season since 2019, speaking of rebuilds.
8 wins. I think 8 wins and showing a lot more. They've got, I mean, the amount of talent they've got on that list, it should start to come forward. They've got one of the coaches, a generational coach. Yeah, I think 8 wins is the
yeah, well, 3 to 8's a big jump, but they've got the job ahead of them now, North Melbourne. After the break, Melbourne, Gold Coast, Port, Geelong, West Coast, St Kilda, and your Bombers, Hurdy. Stay with us on Footy Furnace. You're watching Footy Furnace, the burning questions continuing. Let's go to the Demons, Hurdy. Plenty of expectations around them this year, even though they finished 14th last year. Do you think they've fixed, or can they fix, their ball movement and connection issues?
I think they can, but there's no indication that they have as yet. I don't think there's any indication they have. They haven't recruited any out forward. I think with Petrarca and Oliver playing really good seasons, it helps. But there's no indication it's fixed as yet.
Jimmy, the Gold Coast Suns haven't played finals in their history. Damien Hardwick is their coach. We know he has high expectations. The road to 13 last year is something that we discussed every single week.
This is your favourite, baby.
I thought they were a lock to play finals about halfway through, and they somehow stumbled and didn't make it in the end. As a club, their DNA, do they have a weak underbelly, or can they stiffen their resolve to play finals for the first time this year?
Well, they can, and they've got to get that resilience, and they've got the experience now to have that resilience to win away from home. 7 wins away from home, and I didn't include the Darwin game, sorry, but outside of their home games, only 7 wins in the last 3 years. They don't want for anything. You know, Ballard, Collins as key backs. You got Rioli and these guys across halfback, deep midfield, King, Ainsworth, all these guys up in the forward line. They shouldn't want for too much.
But Jimmy, as you know, you don't know what it looks like till you've done it.
Yep.
And until they've done it, and they've done it week after week after week on the road, or at home, you don't know. And so I'm not sure they know what it looks like just yet.
If you're Ken Hinkley, would you coach out the year at Port Adelaide, Hurdy, if things go pear-shaped, pardon the pun?
Firstly, I don't think they will go pear-shaped because I think Ken's let free and will be able to do a great job. But I think he's got too much class to walk away. I think the only way that ends is if Port Adelaide say no. I think he's got far too much class to walk away.
Jimmy, Geelong, is Bailey Smith capable of recapturing his 2021 form that he showed towards the back end of that season? He was close to the best midfielder in the game at the time.
Of course he does. He's only 24 years of age. We know he prepares really well. He's super fit. You have a look at him. He's got running power. He'll fit into that cat system really well. He, Max Holmes, Patrick Dangerfield, there's a good mix and blend there at Geelong with youth and experience.
Hurdy, how do West Coast keep Harley Reid and Oscar Allen? How much they break the bank for those two players?
That's a big question. I don't think they'll keep Harley Reid long term. I think Oscar Allen, yes, Harley Reid, but I think it'll be $2 million, 10 years. That's the only way I can see them keeping it. I think to get him at one of the Melbourne clubs, I think you've got to offer that sort of money as well.
Why don't you think they'll keep Harley Reid long term?
I just think the rumour mill, I think he wants to come back. Look, I don't know anything. I'm sort of least connected person in the industry. I just feel that one day he'll want to come back and it'll probably be soon.
St Kilda, Jimmy. How do they get themselves out of no man's land, which is something that their president has spoken about as well? It must be a frustrating place to be.
Back this young talent in, and we keep talking about development, but I think what's going unnoticed is actually the amount of young talent they've got there. They've got to come through together. They've got to build this resilience, and they've got to get some wins where this young talented group can see light at the end of the tunnel. Windhager, Owens, Philippou, the two young kids they took in the draft, Wanganeen, Miller, and I've probably missed another half a dozen of that. I think they've got a good group in that age band and bracket, but they've got to come through together. And
an excellent coach as well. Let's go to Essendon to finish off, Hurdy. All summer we've been told by Essendon to lower our expectations. Do you think that's unfair on the supporters that, as you would know, haven't won a final since 2004?
Yeah, I think the supporters expect them to have a good year. I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't heard too much about what Essendon said publicly, but yeah, if I'm an Essendon supporter, I want them to play finals.